Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Welcome to Successful Dropout. This podcast is for the outliers, the innovators, the rebels, those that dare to dream and act on their dreams. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Join me as we find out what it takes to drop out, grind, and succeed as an entrepreneur. Hey, last week on the show we had Derek McGill. If you missed that, go back and listen to it. The guy was just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to being a successful dropout. I believe he also had a free gift, so don't miss out on that. You can also go to successfuldropout.com/episode 6. What's up, Successful Dropouts? Get stoked because today on the show we have Brett Fox. Brett is the co-founder of an online photography school, Photzy.com. Photzy helps photographers understand and control their cameras so that they can produce memorable and share-worthy shots that they are proud to share with their friends and their family. Over the last 3 years, Photzy has grown to over 80,000 online students with a yearly revenue of $500,000. The entire team is remote, allowing Brett to travel and work from anywhere in the world. Right now, he lives in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So, Brett, that's the intro I have for you, but tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, man. That was really it's good. Glad you got through that. It sounds a little bit long-winded when you had someone read it back to me. So sorry about that.
No, it's good.
Basically, that's my story. I mean, I work remote. I'm, I guess, what you'd call a digital nomad. Although that term kind of irks me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's just I've set the business up in such a way that I really wanted to be able to live and work from anywhere. So I kind of spend 6 months a year traveling, and then 6 months kind of at home in Sydney, where I'm from originally. So
a digital nomad. I like the sound of that. And we were just discussing this before we started the interview here. I couldn't find one single thing about you online. You're like a ghost, and I'm curious, why is that?
I try do that on purpose, actually, but I don't want to be, I know some people do a lot of PR and stuff, and that works really well for them. They need that press to push it. But for me, I guess I pick and choose talks that I do or articles that I want to be in very specifically, not so much strategic to grow the business, but more because I like the media and I like what they stand for. For instance, that's why I said this is my first podcast, actually. So,
Well, I'm honored, man. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about Photzy.
So basically, it's an online photography school, as you said in the intro. Predominantly, most of the content is free, actually. And we do that specifically to bring people in, give them really, really high quality content in the form of ebooks. So we give something like, that's about 75 free ebooks. We publish a new one every week. And then we use that information to figure out what you really want to learn about, and then we have these structured courses, and that's how we make the money. We sell those the more in-depth training with things like quizzes along the way, and self-check sections and just assignments and stuff like that. So essentially, that's the model.
And so this is obviously an online business, and so it allows you to really be quite mobile, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. I did that very, very specific and strategic decision to do it that way. I mean, I got a lot of friends, and I'm sure you've had people on your podcast that they're raising money, going the VC route, and they obviously need they're going to have their team in one location, and they aim to turn the business into like a $1 billion thing. Not so much me. I'm happy if we get to. I mean, I'm happy with where we are now, but if we get to $1 million a year in revenue, that's cool too.
So you're not necessarily intentionally keeping it, small, but you're more focusing on keeping it location independent, I guess. As long as that's the priority more than anything.
Exactly. And yeah, I really like having a small and very efficient team. And like the way we work, I've done a lot of research into things that work with a remote team and how to keep the culture strong. I guess a lot of people who run remote businesses, they miss out on the culture part. So I make it a thing for me to chat with every single team member for an hour every single week. And we use Slack actually to communicate, which is it's the greatest tool ever. It's just kind of like a fun chat tool for business. And yeah, so I think that it's really, really important, and that's the biggest thing for me is maintaining the culture and the efficiency of the people on my team. So we're all having fun, and we're growing, but we're not trying to turn it into a huge thing. So
Right. How big is your team?
So right now, everyone's contractors. We have one main guy who's our like a kind of head teacher, I would say. He's a professional photographer. He's shot for like 35 years. Great guy. Lives in the United States. He works for us pretty much full-time hours. And then there is one other guy from the Philippines, Carlo, who's actually a photographer himself, but he manages all our systems and processes. And yeah, he works 30 hours a week. And then me, I work, I think like 6 hours a day or something, like 5 days a week. And so it works pretty well.
And you're in Chiang Mai right now. So what do you do the rest of that time when you're not working?
I love, because I'm a musician, actually. For all this stuff happened, I tried to make it as a professional musician for 9 years. That's a failure in itself.
9 years,
So,
wow.
But yeah, I in my free time, I guess I kind of just come home, play guitar, maybe write some music, or just I don't know if you know what I forget what they're called. There's videos on YouTube, like these viral videos of people playing on these like 64 by 64 beat pads, or like 12 by 12 beat pad things. Anyway, I'm obsessed with that right now. I come home and I'm like just making Skrillex style beats on that, and I'm terrible. But I love
There you
it.
go.
So it's like I'm obsessed with it. My girlfriend has to put up with those, like the sounds, and even with headphones in, you can just hear me tapping, which is probably much more annoying as well.
So you're a drummer then?
I'm not actually a drummer. I'm a guitarist, but I love drums. It's funny. There's in Chiang Mai, the cost of living. One of the reasons why, and we can talk about this a bit more later if you want. But one of the reasons why I'm in Chiang Mai right now is that it is, in terms of like comfort and level of that, that you can live at and expenses,
Right.
It is like top of the list. There's a website called Nomad List, and Chiang Mai is like number one. It kind of ranks places in terms of, internet speed, entrepreneurial community, safety of the country or the area, and this is number one. And Chiang Mai has these music studio kind of things you can go to and just jam in, and it's so cheap. But we're talking like $3, and you can just have a drum kit set up with guitar amps and stuff. So a buddy and I go there, and we just, for 1 hour every single week or 2 hours every week, we just have a blast in there. And I play drums every time. And I was terrible at the start, and now I'm slightly less than terrible, I would say.
Oh my gosh! So you have built what I would call personally a lifestyle business for yourself, and now it seems like you're just living the dream, man.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess that's what it is. It's a lifestyle business. I was inspired originally by the Tim Ferriss stuff.
Yep.
He's
a work week.
Yeah, man, he's like totally the reason why I got onto this path, and I think that's always been in my head to have a business that is efficient and allows me to live the life I want without because man, I got friends that they have these great big businesses, and they're making revenue and they're pulling a salary that makes mine look like absolutely nothing, but at the same time they're stressed out. Really stressed out, and I feel for them, and I totally get that they're going for the bigger goal. There's maybe a bigger message behind what the business is trying to achieve, but at the same time, there's just like this trade-off, right? And I don't want to look back at myself at I'm kind of, how old am I right now? I think I'm 27 right now. I don't want to get to 40 and look back and be like, hey, I wish I'd done some cool stuff.
So you're 27 right now. When did you read 4 Hour Work Week?
Let me work this out. So it was probably around 2008, I would say. How many years ago is that? 2016. I'm not very good at these maths things. 2016, take away 2008.
So this would be eight years.
Oh yeah, it's 8 years, of course. Cool. So eight years ago, that's when I read it. And the way I worked in a call center actually for so long, and a buddy was like, "Oh, check this out." The buddy that I jam with here in Thailand right now, so we both ended up living the remote lives. He gave me the 4 Hour Work Week. He's like, read this chapter. It was the chapter by A.J. Jacobs of Esquire talking about how he outsourced to the Philippines. Right. Something, or the India, or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I read that. And it was between calls. I was in a call center, so I'm selling on one side, and then between the calls, I'm reading this thing. And I was like, this is super fascinating. Had no idea. And I said to the guy, hey, can I borrow the book? And he's like, yeah, go for it. I read the whole book, and I'm like, oh, this is for me for sure.
Would you consider that book as kind of the catalyst to the kind of lifestyle that you live now?
Definitely. I mean, I was always entrepreneurial. Like I had a few other little like things that I was always working on, but in terms of like kicking it into gear, and as you said, the catalyst, that book was it. And I've said this so many times to people, like when I'm doing talks, I'm like, the 4 Hour Work Week, just read it. And I know it doesn't gel with some people. I had a buddy I recommended it to once, and I knew it'd help him, but he was like, he read the first couple of chapters and then he said, oh, it's too self-helpy for me. And fair enough. I mean, it's not for everyone, but for those who do resonate with it, it's a freaking Bible. It's amazing for that. So,
yeah, and I just wanted to get into that because that was the book. I mean, that was the catalyst for me and the kind of lifestyle that I live now and strive for now. And so, Successful Dropouts. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. But yeah, I just wanted to. I find that really interesting, and especially that book is what really has driven kind of this mindset that I have, and it sounds like you have. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
but,
cool.
Anyways, Brett, I want to get into this question here. So, here at Successful Dropout, we help people if they feel called to drop out of college and sometimes high school, grind and succeed as entrepreneurs. And that first step there is what can be a very scary decision, which is whether or not to leave school. And so I want you to tell us the story of why you decided to drop out of college. Tell us about that experience.
Okay, so what happened for me was I was never like I was never really going to be like a big academic. Like I had things that I was into, and definitely school wasn't one of them. But much like most kids, not so much your parents force you, but just the environment of school so high school. Like careers advisors, they're like you need to go and study after school. You need a tertiary education. And I actually ignored that advice originally, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go study. I'm not going to do this. This is for me. And I kind of did nothing for like 4 months out of school. Like didn't even have a job. And then my mother's like, look, you need to do something. And I'm like, okay. So I enrolled in it's kind of I don't know what the equivalent would be in the United States, but it's called TAFE in Australia. It's kind of like I guess maybe like a community college kind of thing. I don't know, I'm not too sure, but I enrolled in sound engineering, actually. I was like, if I'm going to study, I'm going to do something I want to do, right? At least. Quickly realized though, after like a couple of months in that, like there's so many aspects of the degree that I didn't want to be part of. Like I only really enjoyed one aspect, which was working like in like production on not live music, like just working in the studio and producing a track. I hated the live aspect of it, and I didn't want to do that. And it started running through my head, and I got the idea. I'm like, I need to just stop working here. I can't. I mean, I need to stop studying, and I dropped out after 6 months when there was kind of a transition. So I waited till I could. Sorry, there's like someone yelling in Thai in the background.
Yeah, I can hear him.
I'm going to translate for you. I could try. Anyway, basically, I forget where I was. Anyway, I decided. Yeah, I made the decision to leave, and I wanted to make sure I left with something. And the best part about this degree was after 6 months, you could leave with like this kind of certificate of completion for part of it. So I waited for the 6 months. I left with that, and I guess as a decision to leave. It was not that big of a deal for me because I always knew that I was going to do something bigger. At the time, I thought I was going to be like a rock star, right? So my whole life was geared towards that. I was playing shows quite often, and I had a band, and we were doing really cool things. But I was like, I don't want to study. I want to follow my passion. I guess being a musician is an entrepreneurial pursuit as well.
Absolutely,
yeah, and that's kind of what happened. It wasn't. I know for some people, dropping out is a difficult decision to make. But for me, it wasn't like I drew up a pros and cons list. I was like, "Nah, I'm out. Like, I can't do this." So, yeah.
How did your friends and family react after that?
Mum was okay. Mum was like, you make sure you get a good job. Like, just get a job. My friends were like, "Yeah, man, rock and roll life. It's better." That kind of thing. So, they were just kind of stoners who are just encouraging me to like just be a bum, which is fine, like that's cool. But my mum's always been really, really supportive of whatever decision I make, and I think that's been really important. For the success I've achieved so far is having that support from her. But yeah, most friends and family were kind of encouraging of whatever. Also, being really young, I think I was 18 at the time. Most people, like when you're so young, they still in their head look at you and they're like, oh, you can chop and change as many times as you want. You'll still be able to work it out. As you start to get older, right now, like me as 27, some people. I mean, now if I said to someone, oh, I'm going to go and study and become a doctor, or not just as an example, but they would have more of a skepticism because I'm older. But when you're 18, people are more forgiving, and I think that's one thing you have on your side if you're young and you're thinking about dropping out. It's like, you can make so many mistakes, even at 27. I mean, I could destroy the business now, start up something new and whatever, and I still believe I can make it a success. But yeah, you got time on your side if you're young. And I'd say anyone under 40, young. So
there you go. Yeah, I completely, and that comes up again and again. It's like when you're, 18, 20, 22, even, really under the age of 25, for sure, you're so young, and you have at least a couple of years in there where you can put school on hold even. You can always come back. Just because you drop out doesn't mean you're done for good. A lot of schools will honor your credits for a long time.
Yeah, that's so true. It's not the end of the world. I think, I can't give, generic advice for like someone to be like, hey, you should definitely drop out or you should definitely stay in school, because everyone's situation is so unique. Mm-hmm. But I think the important thing to stress is that, it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong decision. Like I've got friends that have decided they dropped out at one stage. They went and they tried to do their own thing, to get a job and whatever. And for whatever reason, they've gone back and studied, and now they've successfully graduated, and now they're working in their field. Like it doesn't matter too much. It's like when you're young, you can kind of make these mistakes, and most people, I guess I would say the majority of people listening to this podcast are in a position that they could make the mistake of dropping out or staying in whatever that is, and it'll have no major impact on their life as a whole. It'll be like a blip.
Yeah, successful dropouts. The biggest mistake that you could make is sticking with something just because it's what you're supposed to do, I guess, or because it's what everybody else does. A lot of the times it can be very scary to step out of the pipeline, the educational pipeline, the system, and try something new, and there's all these fears involved. But like Brett was saying, you are young, and yeah, that biggest mistake would be to regret not doing that later.
So true. Very, very true.
When you really don't have that much to fear. So Brett, you mentioned your mom was really supportive. I've got to ask that question, how did your friends and family react? Because I think that is a huge concern for anybody dropping out is, how do you deal with parents that just don't understand? They're from a different generation, a different day, when to be successful, you really did have to have a degree, and it's not so much that way anymore. So anybody who's experiencing maybe parents or friends that aren't that supportive, would you have any advice for them? What would that be?
Oh, definitely. And I'll focus on the parents, because your friends can kind of like, you can make a decision, your friends will be against you, but they'll still love you, right? And same with your parents, but parents are the ones you got to deal with. And there's a system for dealing with parents, which I use is kind of like, you just have to make them understand your reasons behind your decision, and let them like sympathize and empathize with you. Because if you're just like, Mom, I'm dropping out of college, she'll be like, why are you doing that? It's a terrible decision, but if you come in and you say something like, hey, I've been thinking, Mom, and I want to ask you a question. Did you ever feel like you followed through with something in your life that you maybe you shouldn't have? Like that you look back and you regret, and you frame it in that way, right? And that's just what you say. And then usually I'd say most of the time, as someone is going to say, as in response to that, a parent will say, yeah, I've done this. They'll share a story, and you're like, look, that's what I'm thinking about now with college. And just having that as an in, as opposed to, Mom, I'm quitting college. Right. I'm dropping out. It makes it a much more of a discussion. And if you can make them, it sounds kind of manipulative when you do it this way, but I think if you can make your parents understand your decision why, and maybe if you can ideally help them come to the conclusion that that's what the best thing is, and then suggest that to you, they won't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I hear even a bit of a salesmanship factor in there, which is it's definitely
yeah.
an essential skill to being an entrepreneur. So, it's good. It's definitely good practice here, and that's just good communication, I feel, and just good. salesmanship, negotiating, you can call it a few different things. But even if you were to just like say, hey, I'm going to take 1 year off, I'm going to go do this. If it doesn't work out, set some benchmarks. If I don't reach these certain benchmarks or goals, then I'll go back to school, and you can put that in writing or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that I didn't even think of doing something like that, but that makes perfect sense, because then you're going to try and achieve this thing for a year. If it doesn't work, you're going to go back to the main path, and it's at worst case scenario, you learn a lot in those 12 months, but you go back and you put that forward to your parents, and they'll be fine with that idea.
Absolutely. So Brett, let's talk about, I want to hear your story from after you dropped out, and kind of your journey from just after that to when you started your first, I guess, was Photzy, was that right after the band, or did you have any businesses that you started in between there?
So there was a lot of overlap. I was in the band up until 2 years ago. So there was a lot of overlap with me still trying to make it as a professional musician, right, as well as trying to grow a business, which is pretty much like, it's the most masochistic thing you can do. It's torture, right? You're killing yourself rehearsing 9 hours a week, and you're in the studio, and you're touring. So you're in a van traveling around Australia, 8 hours to get to another city. And at the same time, you're working 14 hours to try and grow your company. So it doesn't really, you're killing. I mean, I destroyed myself for a while, but I guess to take you from the point when I kind of dropped out, I was always doing little entrepreneurial things. I mean, I started pretty young, I guess, with like a lot of entrepreneurs. You start by selling something or flipping an item or whatever, and you're like, hey, I can make money.
Yep.
And it's super interesting. So there's a guy walking past right now, pushing a cart.
No worries. Good catch.
I can make it interesting. I could describe it to you.
Oh yeah, go for it.
It's yellow. It's very bright, actually, and the guy's wearing very interesting attire for a cleaner. Anyway, totally lost where I was up to. Okay, back in. I dropped out, right? And I think there was all these little things I was trying, but my mother was like, "You need to get a job. Like, you have to. You can't just be this like deadbeat musician." And I basically, it was out the back of a gig one night. We played at an RSL club, and the drummer from another band, I was like, "Man, I need to get work. Like, my mother's going to kick me out of home." And he's like, "Oh, dude, there's a call center. They hire everyone." And at this time, I should describe to you what I looked like. I was wearing it sounds like so hipster. Like, I was wearing skinny jeans before they were cool, but like they actually weren't cool to wear skinny jeans then. I just thought I was a rock star from the 80s. Like, I idolized Guns N' Roses and like Motley Crue and stuff. So had this really, really long hair, teased, eyeliner, heaps of jewelry.
Oh,
that's like what I look like. So there's not many places that would hire someone that looks like that, except for a call center, right? And so the guy said to me, "Hey, just come to this call center. Make sure you wear a collared shirt." I don't own a collared shirt. So anyway, I bought this really shitty collared shirt, and I rocked up. there was no organized interview. I just rocked up at the place. I don't know if you have that term, rocked up. It just means I just showed up. So I just basically showed up. Anyway, I showed up there, and anyway, got the interview, got the job, started a day later, and I was terrified. I couldn't sell, and I remember the first call I had was probably around, because when you start, you have to do evening calls first because they're the hardest. And it's cold calling too. We were cold calling for charities to raise money.
Right.
So it's 6 p.m. I'll set the scene, 6 p.m., which is like dinner time, right? I see the record come up. I don't know if the call center, you have your headphones on, and then I'm I read the script, and I'm so nervous. I'm sweating profusely, and my hands are shaking. I'm like, "Oh, hey, it's Brett calling from the Society for Animal Protection. I was wondering," and then they're basically swear at me. "What are you doing calling at dinner time?
No.
Get a real job, hang up." And I was like, I'm done. The phone hangs up, and I'm freaking out. I'm so sweaty. I'm I can't do this. I walk up, and this lovely girl, I forget her name, she was one of the call center kind of floor managers, and she's like, "Okay, I'm going to sit down with you, and I'm going to help you do this." And I knew I needed to stay in the job. I don't know if you know any of the stats of turnover rate in a call center, but basically 50% of people who start working in a call center, especially cold calling, leave in the first week.
Oh wow!
And then the remaining amount of people, 75% of them will leave in the first 3 months. So you really need to be crazy to stay in a call center like me for 3.5 years.
Apparently.
So yeah, so anyway, I got really good. I was never the best, but basically this experience was invaluable to my entrepreneurial journey. And as I was saying before, I got the 4-hour work week book recommendation from a guy that was working in that call center with me. So it just kind of was the perfect storm of setting up a business. I tried multiple things. I did what everyone does when you want to start a company is like, oh, what should I do? Oh, let's create a t-shirt company. And it was terrible. Like we made like business cards and like we made shirts before even realizing like there was no market. Like I don't even know what I was thinking, but you're an idiot when you get excited, right? And there was all these little things back and forth, and I spent a lot of time reading about, and I think this is a bit of advice that I totally disagree with to some extent. But a lot of people say you should follow your passion in business. Like so if you love music, you should start a business in music. And for me, that was like terrible advice because I loved music, right? And then I decided to created. There was it was kind of like an agency that made websites for bands, and if you know anything about musicians, they're like, hey, have no money. Right. And I remember this one call. I'm like, I sold like 2 websites, right? And it was terrible, but I built these 2 sites and I charged like $100, which is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. This one guy, I ran some little ads in a local music press thing, and this one guy called up and I quoted him the thing, and then he was really quiet, and I was telling him about it. I was really nervous too, and then he basically said to me, he's like, look, if I'm paying you $100, I want it to have full e-commerce functionality, and we need to have all the social things tied in, and my team, everyone else needs to be able to log in and see all these stats. And I was like, yeah, okay, we can do that.
Oh man!
so I sold my soul. I spent like 30 hours, 40 hours just like getting the e-commerce side done, and for $100 here, right? And in the end of the day, he only ended up paying me half. It's terrible because it didn't. Anyway, so then. I thought after that, I kind of moved on to away from the agency side of things, and I was like, okay, I was still working at the call center at this time. That was like my income, my actual income. I tried a few things, but there was a point where I was like, oh, this deal, like the daily deals thing, is like exploding, right? I wanted to. I thought about like maybe doing something on this, and I kind of like made a note of that. Anyway, I didn't end up doing it then, and I made that point because I'll come back to it later. But at that point, at the 3.5 year mark, I left that call center because I was dead. I had been told to F off enough times, and like my spirit was like crushed. Yeah. But I had this invaluable sales education, and I left, and I thought, let's focus on music for a while. Maybe I'll just make some money from my music. Which doesn't really work out, but I was trying anyway. And then I left, and I had no money, no income, and I ended up working for another call center.
Oh man!
And by a chance encounter with an ex-girlfriend, like I saw her and she was with this other guy, and great way to start. And anyway, like when you meet someone and you kind of like it's like your ex-girlfriend's new dude, and you kind of like you stand up a bit taller, right. And you got this whole thing. I'm a little dude, just I'm nervous. This guy's a big guy. He's really friendly. But anyway, it turns out he wasn't actually with her. He was just a friend. And we started talking about working. This was at a gig that we was watching a band play. And he's like, oh, you sales stuff. And I was like, yeah, I did cold calling. He's like, oh, we need sales agents for our office, warm calling from people calling inbound. We're selling makeup to like stay-at-home moms. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that sounds so easy. Sign me up. Anyway, signed up, started working there. It was great. Worked there for a couple of months, made so much money because I was really good at that.
Right.
And then there was an opportunity. And this is probably a really big turning point for me. And it really helped with the entrepreneurial stuff too, was they were going to hire like a social media / digital marketing kind of manager. And that company was ridiculously fast growing at the time. It was the fastest growing company in Australia. They basically grew to $50 million in 3 years. Wow. Which is like literally 10 times the size of what my business is now in the same time. And they didn't use any form of online advertising to get there, which is they had no e-commerce store, and they did that much money. Anyway, fascinated by that, I pitched to them. I said, look, I know a lot about this digital stuff. I've failed lots of times with this stuff, but I've learned heaps of things. And I put together this pitch, and I pitched the call center boss, and she was like, oh, this is great. Puts me in front of the big boss to pitch this, like to work for them, right? And I'm so nervous. I borrowed a tie from my friend. I had I remember it was like this skinny red tie, and it's like, don't wear a skinny red tie to like a pitch. I'm like, nah, it's great. I've got this. Borrowed a jacket, borrowed these pants, and I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. Walk in there. and he's like stone faced, right? I'm pitching this thing to him about whatever, and he sits there, doesn't really comment the whole time, just kind of nods, kind of scribbles on the paper. And I'm like, oh man, that is terrible. He hates me. Why did I even try to do this? I'm so nervous and I was so beat up. And he's like, at the end, he's like, oh, thank you. Talked a little bit about some stuff and then left. And then I'm like, oh gosh, well, I guess I still got the job at the call center, whatever. Next thing I see, I think it was the day after, I get an email. And it was a letter of offer to be the digital marketing manager for this company, the junior. And I was like, and it was a salary, and I've never even seen a salary before. Right? So I was like, yes. And I worked there, and it was incredible. That was an amazing learning experience, and I think one thing that is invaluable to someone who wants to be entrepreneurial is work for a fast-growing company in the early stages. Like, you will get experience across a wide range of things. You get to your opinion is more highly valued. You can actually take part in decisions as opposed to just slotting into a giant corporate and just fitting your puzzle piece role.
Right.
I learned so much from that. And eventually I went to leave, and I said, look, hey, I'm going to leave. I'm going to do my own thing. And my boss was like, no, you're good here. Well, how about we raise your salary by $30,000? I'm like, that sounds great.
I'll stay.
Yeah, so I just pretty much walked down the door. And it was crazy. I got this crazy salary raise, but I only ended up staying for 3 more months. And I saved up a lot of that money, and my lifestyle at that stage was ridiculous because I was earning so much, and I was 22, 21. I was earning a very large amount of money for a 21-year-old. So with all this money, my lifestyle was becoming very expensive, and I made the stupid decision of maintaining that lifestyle when I left the job. So I was trying to build my own company while still living like I was earning $80,000 a year. And so it was a very, very poor decision in hindsight. But at this point, I started this thing called Muso Deals, which was a daily deal site for musicians. As I said before, this idea was always in my head, and I modeled it on this US company called Hello Music, which is now folded as well. And I told all of my friends, and if your listeners can relate to this, be like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. And you become like what I call a calculator warrior. Like, you work out how much money you're going to make on the calculator, and you're like, oh, this is great. And I think every entrepreneur has done that at some point. And, and I remember I told my friends, and I pitched them like, oh, and I got them to buy into the idea. They all thought I was going to be rich. Anyway, long story short, totally didn't work. There's not enough demand in Australia to match for a model, like a deals model for such a niche like musicians. It doesn't work. Right. I couldn't even convince the retailers to come on board. I had all these cold calling skills. I think one day I cold called 100 music stores, and I got one of them to agree to give me one item to sell on this site. Oh, wow. It was just brutal. And I'm super discouraged at this point. I'm like, oh man, what have I done? And the classic up and down entrepreneur thing, right? Killing myself. At this point, I joined a co-working space in Sydney called Fishburners, which is where I met one of your previous guests, Holly, who introduced me to be interviewed. And we in Fishburners, I networked with people. I learned a lot about stuff, and I made friends with this guy, Rob, who owns a big photography blog called Light Stalking. And we used to sit in this room with this other guy and just talk marketing and just share ideas and whatever. And he was like, you know a lot, but you haven't really been able to put it into practice yet. I'm like, yeah, I know. Anyway, then he tells me that he's thinking about doing a deal site for photographers. And I was like, oh wow, I know so much about this. And I said to him, I was quite, I'm quite it can be really anxious and nervous sometimes about certain things, even though I probably come across like an extrovert. I'm totally introverted in certain aspects. And basically we had this chat. It was Friday night. I had a couple of beers, and he was about to leave, and I thought, here's my chance. I go, hey Rob, before you go, how about, if you do this photography deals thing, I'd be the sales guy. I would happily be the sales guy. You pay me a salary, and you don't have to pay me later as well once we start getting a return, but I'll do all the sales, I'll do all the calls, I'll guarantee deals, I'll do that. And he was like, oh, okay, I'll think about it. And, he left, and I was like, I think I got blind drunk that night as well. My life's going nowhere. Anyway, the next morning I had lunch. I had lunch in the morning. I had breakfast with my friend at this cafe, and I still remember that I was eating 2 poached eggs and some bacon because I was trying some really healthy breakfast diet with no bread kind of thing. Right. And I opened my laptop and my friend and I were like brainstorming what I'm going to do with my life. And then I see an email from Rob. And the email was like, hey, you have a cash flow problem. I have a time problem. How about we go 50-50 in this deal site for photographers? And and I'll solve both our issues. And I was like, oh, wow, here's the answer to my prayers. Like, we are going to be able to, I was like confident I'm going to take this to, it's going to be huge. And that was, the name of the thing was Photzy, which is what we're working on now. Anyway, it didn't work out as planned. I was able to bring lots of deals in. We made some money, but the deals industry was kind of dying. And we had all these competitors and we're freaking out about a year into that. And it wasn't working. And I just said, we looked at the numbers and we realized the educational products were selling the best. So let's just change the whole model and focus on the education aspect. And we did. And it was the best decision we ever made. I'd like to tell you from that point, it was like a hockey stick growth curve, but it was not. It was like more like a really slow incline, which has taken me to where we're at right now. And it's been a bit of a roller coaster since then. But that was the ultimate. That's the journey basically that I went on, I guess. Yeah.
That is an incredible journey, man.
Yeah, there's lots of other little bits and pieces in there that I left out, like just stupid business ideas that I had. I can share one or two later, but that's the gist of it. And I guess like the main thing I want to stress is that like for me, one of the most the most valuable things I did was, one, get some experience selling. I feel like being able to sell yourself and sell your ideas is so imperative. And then two, working for a fast growing young company was that is amazing. If your listeners are thinking about dropping out, rather than jump in straight to doing your own thing, work for a really fast growing company. It'll help. It'll like you'll skip so many years of trial and error by just learning, getting that knowledge.
Absolutely, great point, man. And how long ago was it that when you decided to switch Photzy over to more of the educational direction? How long ago was that?
So that's about 3 years ago.
Okay, so for the last 3 years now, you've been on kind of a growth trajectory, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it has its ups and downs, but as with any business, but it's been pretty good for that for the last 3 years.
So how do you generate revenue right now through the website?
Okay, cool. So basically, we sell, and we have all this free content, which is great, but we monetize those users by selling them the premium stuff, which can be anything from a $7 premium ebook up until like a $120 full complete course on natural light. So yeah, that's how we make the money. It's a classic info product play in that we we have the internet marketing style, like upsells and all of that. I'm very aggressive on email marketing. I will send 3 emails a week every week. And if you put your hand up and you're a buyer, I'll send you even more emails because I know that you're interested in our stuff and you're willing to pull out your credit card. And I don't see that as an annoying thing as long as those emails are high value. And that's one thing that we, I guess one of our key differentiators is that we try to edutain, if that is a word, infotain people. Like, it's all of our content is not just how to do this. It's like how to do this with all these personal stories and anecdotes boiled in. And one thing your listeners are probably like thinking right now is like, but he's not a photographer. How's this happening? And I get this question all the time, so I'll just kind of preempt it here. I am not the photographer. That's definitely right. And I don't claim to be at any point in our marketing. The way that we've angled it, which makes us really different, is that I am basically a student too. And I'm a photography enthusiast. I love photography, don't get me wrong. I absolutely think it's amazing. And I do have a camera and I do shoot. I'm just terrible at it. But using that mindset, I've come into it looking for amazing content. And that's how we're working with our main content creator and some of the other guys. And I'm like basically creating the content that I want to learn from.
Right.
And when I send emails out, they come from me. So it's not like, hey, my name's Brett. I've created this photography course. I'm great. Learn from me. It's like, hey, my name's Brett. I'm like you. If you want to learn from this guy. He's amazing. And that slight change has made us, I think, has given us a very good advantage because out of the other guys that are in our industry, I would say 99% of them are doing their own content.
So are some of these people on your team, they are the content creators? Is that what they do full time?
That is correct. Yeah. The guy who is our main, like I call him the director of content, the main content creator. He is the one that's been shooting for 35 years.
Oh wow.
So he's he's the main dude that creates the content. And the guy is like incredibly talented. He's also a published fiction writer as well. Does publish some short stories. So he's got this incredible ability to weave in stories and make things so much more interesting than the average bit of content. It's great. Like I read some of that content sometimes and I'm like, oh, this is great. And like, I mean, it kind of sounds a bit like a bit stupid to be like that. But, you know, seriously, this guy is so good at what he does, like at not only teaching, but conveying his ideas in an interesting way. And I feel really lucky to have him on the team. And he's great. I think that's one thing is with our team, how we can do quite well with a small team is everybody, one, understands what we're trying to achieve, two, believes in what we're trying to achieve, and three, like they talk with each other and they all, I empower them to make decisions as well. So you kind of get so much more than just having a yes man to work underneath you. You get like really individually creative people who can help the business grow. Like you pull out any of our full-timers, and you know we fail for sure. Any of our contractors, even we wouldn't have a business.
So Brett, you kind of gave us your roller coaster of an entrepreneurial journey there, and the next two questions I'd like to go into at this point are the best and the worst of that journey. And you already told us quite a few stories, but if you can think of some unique ones, you should share those. So first, like what would you consider your worst entrepreneurial moment to be?
I'll give you two, right? Two. So early days of the deals site, I decided to. We did this thing which was like basically to download a product you had to share it or something. Anyway, I didn't even set it up properly, and we sent the email out to like a huge amount of people with like a broken link, and I was like, oh man, like. So dumb. Just did not think it through, and it's partly because I was just so brazen, right? I just wanted to get things done quickly, and one thing I've learned from that, and many other things I've done, is really sometimes like double check things and like think things through. And and one other story which I'll share with you. It's an interesting one. It involves a bit of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Can I say that on your podcast?
Go ahead, man.
Let's make it a bit more juicy for your listeners. Anyway, at one stage I started a company. Well, it wasn't a company. It was me and my friend wanted to create warehouse parties in Sydney, underground warehouse parties. So like underground kind of raves, more for like
awesome.
Indie hipster kids. Anyway, we ran a couple at this venue, and for whatever reason, the guy that ran that venue, not for whatever reason, I think he got busted for like drugs or something, right? So we couldn't use that venue anymore. And this guy was really weird, actually. I got some crazy stories that I could not share on your podcast with you, but just know that they happened.
I'll take your word for
it. we moved on to this other venue, which was basically an art gallery. So imagine a pristine room with beautiful white walls like that. And we wanted to run a warehouse party here. And we said to the lovely lady who owns it, we're like, look, we'll run a party here. We'll have the bands. And she was a bit skeptical. She's like, oh, you're going to mess it up. We're like, no, we'll make sure it's clean afterwards. Don't worry. Anyway, we ran this warehouse party, and everything went wrong. Like the DJ equipment didn't come, so we were like running around like 5 minutes before we meant to start, like trying to find someone that had decks and like a PA system. I'm like stressed. Like all this stuff happened with the ticketing, and anyway, about 3 times as many people as we planned for, or maybe not 3 times, maybe 2 times as many people as we planned for showed up. So this place was packed, right? And if you've ever been to a warehouse party, if any of your listeners have, it's really uncomfortable and sweaty and whatever. Imagine that kind of hurricane of like this cesspool of youth, just like with grime and muck on their feet, messing the entire art gallery up, right?
Oh my gosh.
So we ran this party, and we did the classic calculated warrior thing. We're like, we're going to make so much money. It's going to be great. Anyway, totally didn't happen that way. Not at all. What happened was we ran the thing. Anyway, the police rocked up, shut it down. We'd always have that happen at some point. Like, you know, it's when you have an underground party, that always happens. But, you know, all this stuff, and then everyone left, and I was hideously intoxicated at the time too, because we ran it like professionals, right? So obviously drank as well. We went to we left, and we're like, oh, we'll come back and clean the next day, and the lights were dark, so we didn't really see how bad it was. We came back the next day, and it was destroyed. Like, the place was like, I don't know how this happened. There was dirt up the walls like 7 feet high. It's like someone had like done like fly kicks up the wall or something. Like, I have no idea. And we were like, she's like, well, you can hire a professional cleaner for $500 and get this done like today. And we're like, no, that'll kill all our profits. We will do this. So here we are, hungover the next day, on our hands and knees, scrubbing this art gallery from top to bottom, literally from pretty much the ceiling to the floor, me and my business partner. And we're like in no state to be doing any kind of physical activity. It took us like 6 hours, even longer. And then she said, oh, it's not clean enough. You still got to do more here. I'm like, oh. So anyway, another couple of hours, and we finally finished. And she said, oh, it's okay. And we went, I think we had a coffee, and we looked back at what the time spent and the money earned was, and it was like terrible. Like, our individual earnings for like the time we spent running this party were like so bad. Like, we're talking dollars here. And then something else happened as well. Someone's equipment broke, so we ended up having to pay so out of the money that we'd made anyway. So it was a terrible, great learning experience, hugely successful party, but oh my God, we definitely did not make money from this. It was a terrible entrepreneurial venture.
Jeez, sure. That sounds like a scene straight out of like American Pie, the American Pie movie or something.
It's crazy. I mean, I've got some pretty crazy things that have happened to me throughout life, right? Now, hey, another good moment, which I'll share with you guys, and on the other idea, it's kind of entrepreneurial. I mean, it's related to the music stuff. We entered a band competition when I was 19, and our manager, who's like, I was going to try and do an impersonation of him. He's this big, like, Croatian guy with like a really deep voice, and like he's like thinks he's like the best thing in the world. Anyway, but he's a great guy, but he's so fascinating. Anyway, he comes, we all sit down at his table, and he's like, I have a proposition for you. He sounds very Russian. Right, we'll just go with that. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, there's a band competition, and if you want to enter the competition, if it is not rigged, I think you can win. And we're like, sweet. So we enter. And you know what? We actually won this band comp, and we got flown to Europe.
Whoa, nice!
We got flown to Europe, yeah, and we got to play in front of like thousands of people at the unsigned stage at this festival. It's freaking incredible, yeah, that was like an absolute highlight in my life. I just remember a funny little story from the night we won. Right, it was between us, and we're kind of these like 18-year-old, rough around the edges kind of kids that play like this dirty kind of rock and roll, and there was this really polished band, and they're all like in their mid-20s. They're really tall, really muscly, and like they're the guys. They had us both up on stage to kind of announce who was going to be the winner between us. I had already gotten drunk at this point, so I decided I'm going to jump up on stage and just like act like we've won, because I thought we'd won. And so here's this, like, the scene, set the scene, 500, 600 people in the room watching the announcement of the winner, and this drunk kid's just jumping around like he's won already, because I thought we'd won. And anyway, my friend was like, calm down, bro, we didn't win. I'm like, oh, crap. So I'm so embarrassed. Anyway, we did win. So and then they played We Are the Champions, and I jump onto the front barrier, the fence thing, and like these streamers are falling down. I'm like, I was pretty much in tears. I was so excited. It's the best moment ever. Yeah, I mean, like that's a really, like, probably one of the biggest highlights so far in my life is like winning that competition. It was great. So
that's awesome.
The moral of the story is sometimes band competitions aren't rigged, and you can win.
Hey,
so
good to know, man. So as far as like speaking entrepreneurially, what was like a light bulb moment that you had where something just clicked and you were like, I get it now?
I guess one of the big things, and I would like have this as a bit of advice for anyone, is I've already touched on one half of which is learning how to sell. Mm-hmm. But the other part is learning how to sell in writing, which is copywriting. I think copywriting is the most valuable skill for any early stage entrepreneur. For sure. The time you would spend learning copy pays tenfold returns. It's phenomenal. Because, you know, if you think about it, it's not just writing sales copy. When you're writing emails to communicate with people, when you're doing anything that's a written communication, if you know how to convey those ideas clearly and persuade, you will be head and shoulders above everyone else, for sure.
So this next question is one of my favorites. If you could time travel back to day one of your entrepreneurial journey and have 10 minutes with your former self to communicate any lessons you've acquired with the intention of saving yourself mistakes and heartache, which it sounds like there was a lot of that, what would you tell yourself?
10 minutes. That's like a very short amount of time. As you can probably tell, I love to talk. So
well, you don't have to take up a full 10 minutes, but just abbreviate. What would you tell that young Brett?
Man, I would at the start I'd be like, break up with the girl you're with right now. She's gonna ruin your life. No, I'm joking. That's terrible. If she's listening to this, she'll hate me. No, I would say to her, say to me, look, spend some time really thinking about what you want out of this, and don't just write some arbitrary goal like I want to be a millionaire, because I think that's what I did. I was just not really thinking about it clearly, and it took a while to finally get to the point where I'm like, I want to live remote and have that freedom of lifestyle, as you said, a lifestyle business. To really think about what you want. And the other one would be start exercising regularly, eat healthy, and stop drinking. And stop chain smoking. I used to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day back then.
Oh gosh!
So just those all now I don't even drink or smoke at all, and I'm in the gym an hour every day, and I eat really well. And it's I wish I'd made those decisions early on. I probably aged myself 10 years in that 3-year period. So yeah, that's the advice that I'd give myself. Although knowing me back then, I wouldn't have listened at all.
What's a personal habit that contributes to your success? And I want to usually, I let the guest answer this, but we were talking earlier and you mentioned you have a really strong morning routine, and I haven't had anybody really talk about that. And so I'd love you to share that morning routine with us.
Oh, lovely. No problem. I'm happy to do that. And feel free to steal. Your listeners can steal this. And the thing about a morning routine is what works for one person doesn't work for others. But this is what works for me. And I've tried so many different routines. This is what works hands down. So I wake up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock with no alarm every morning. So make sure, I feel like an alarm just disrupts the sleep.
Is this because do you get 8 hours of sleep or no matter the amount you still wake up?
It isn't a matter of the amount I wake up. I try so hard to get 8 hours sleep, because for years I was one of those people that's I can survive on 5. I'm really good at life and I'm lucky. And then I realized that no, I can't. I'm functioning at 60% capacity. So now I try to get 8 hours, but it's really hard when my girlfriend is a night owl. So she's up late, and I have to go to bed at 9 o'clock, 8:30 or whatever it is. So I'm trying to get to sleep at 8:30, lying in bed listening to an audiobook, and she's awake. So it's hard, but naturally, because I've got myself into rhythm now, between 4:30 and 5, I'm awake without fail. My body will wake up, even if I've only had 5 hours sleep. It's just that's the time of morning I wake up. So first thing I do is I have half a liter of cold water straight away, straight to the fridge, cold water. Scull it down, which scull is a term in Australia, which means just slam it down, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, drink that, and then I make a drink of what spirulina is. It's horrible green stuff. Yeah. So I make a heap spoon of that in a little cup, and I smash that down, and it's not even that high quality spirulina, which kind of blends with the water well and tastes sweet. It's
all chunky,
straight out of the ground. I don't even know. Spirulina doesn't come from the ground. Taste this. It's like pond. It looks like a pond. So I drink that, and then I boil some water, and I make a special kind of coffee, which is just it's basically a spoon of instant coffee with coconut oil and some turmeric in there as well.
Okay.
And turmeric is that. It's kind of an Indian spice, I think, and it's a very delicate tool. For example, this morning I used a bit too much. It was a bit too heavy-handed, and instead of being a spicy coffee, it turned more into a liquid Indian meal. So yeah, but I have that every morning. I swear by it. I have no idea. I think I listened to it on a Tim Ferriss podcast.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
So I did that, and so I have that, and then I just do the so that's made. I don't drink that straight away. I go shower, do that, then I meditate. When I come back, I meditate. Very important. Meditate every day. I try to do 10 minutes. If I'm in a rush, I do 5. Usually a guided meditation, because my mind's crazy and I need someone guiding me. Right. And then I do some stretches and some yoga for a couple of minutes. And then I do morning pages, which is another thing I stole from Tim Ferriss. Pretty much whatever he does. I know it's tested, so I try it. But if for those of you who don't know what morning pages are, it's basically a purge of your brain in the morning, where you open up a journal and with a line journal, and you write 3 pages nonstop about anything you want. And during that time, I drink that coffee. And then I get dressed. Yes, the previous. I have no clothes on in the previous section, and I do that on purpose too, because it's kind of nice and freeing to like walk around during that time without like being, because it's really hot in Thailand right now. You know,
Right.
like it doesn't. You know, majority in the middle of the day. I'll convert it to temperature that your listeners understand. It's about 100 degrees during the day every day.
Oh, wow.
So at night, it's still pretty freaking hot here. So in the morning, I'm kind of like, yeah, as much time as I can be naked is great. So, and then I get ready, and then I come in to the co-working space, which is actually it's basically a cafe in a shopping center here in Thailand that has really great internet that you can get for free if you use this certain telco. So I do that, and I come in here every day, and I work until 1:30, and then that's it. I've kind of run past my morning routine, haven't I? But yeah, that's what I do.
No, that's awesome though. I mean, I was saying it earlier, but you win the morning, you win the day. I've also got a strong morning routine, and without it, I would be half as focused as I usually am throughout the day. It really just kind of sets the tone for the day. And
it's so true. It's like, it's invaluable to have like that, because you get into the kind of mode you need to be in to be efficient and work effectively throughout the day. Like I'm the same. If I skip, like I don't drink very often, but I went out for like 3 months ago. My girlfriend and I went out to have drinks with a few new friends we made here. And we didn't drink a lot, but like the next morning I was so groggy, I didn't do my routine, and I was like off the whole day.
Yeah.
The whole day it was terrible. So routines are great. And if someone's hearing like this and thinking, oh, there's so many things to do, it's like, just implement one little one. Like maybe just start with, every morning I'm going to have half a liter of cold water when I wake up, and just start from there. And that's what I did. I built it out over time. There was no way that everyone does this, and I've been guilty of in the past. I'm going to bring in a new habit, but instead of bringing in one new habit, I bring in 50, and I try to sustain that. It does not work. Right. Like at all. Yeah.
Bite-sized chunks. Yeah. And that morning routine, incredible personal habit to have. So Brett, tell me really quick, what's a quality that you have that you would consider essential to being an entrepreneur?
Oh, it's a hard one. I don't really think I have any qualities that are essential to be an entrepreneur. I feel like anyone is has the capabilities to be an entrepreneur. One thing I would say that is an advantage, not so much an essential, but a very big advantage is someone who can be hyper passionate or be obsessed with something. Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're the kind of person who like can become obsessed with things like and just really passionate about them, I feel like it is an unfair advantage, because you'll meet people who just can't get as excited about the same ideas as you. And that's a total advantage for sure. So again, don't think anything's essential. Like I honestly believe that anyone can be an entrepreneur. There's nothing essential, but an unfair advantage is being hyper passionate and the ability to be obsessed with things for sure. And not the unhealthy kind of obsession. Just want to make sure I clarify that. But yeah, for sure.
What's a business book that you would recommend to us, and why?
4-Hour Workweek. 100% read that book. It changed my life. It has changed many people I know's lives. I believe yourself as well, as we spoke about before. Yeah, and it is it's an incredible read. I guess some of the actual the tactical stuff in there is a little bit out of date, as in there's a whole part where Tim talks about how he would test an info product idea using AdWords. And that stuff is like, the cost of AdWords has gone up so much, and that won't work anymore. But all the theory and the overall strategy of that book is still sound. And it definitely can help anyone. One other little thing, it's not so much a book, but a great resource for anyone who wants to learn about marketing in general is digitalmarketer.com. Ryan Dice and his team. I have been a fan of Ryan's for a while, but a lot of internet marketers I'm a fan of. I'm a total junkie for that stuff. But from what I've seen recently, they have elevated themselves above everyone else. Their content is of a higher quality. They're very, very intelligent, and they're always testing and putting out new information. And that's a massive shortcut for people who want to just learn about digital marketing. Go to digitalmarketer.com.
So what's next for you, man? What's the next big goal?
Next big goal. I would say I'm actually moving back to Sydney for a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah, so my girlfriend and I are going to go back to Sydney. I've been away from my family for Christmas and stuff for a few years, so it'd be great to spend some time with them. So that's like the next thing. Business-wise, we have some really cool things we're working on in terms of encouraging consumption of content. One of the biggest things with information products is that people, they buy it, but they never go through the content. And a lot of people don't understand this, but if you think about it, like how many times have you bought a book and not read the whole thing, or downloaded the Kindle thing and not read it? It happens very often because you get sold on it, and which is great. But for us, I believe in our content, and I know that if people actually do read it, they'll get a result. So I'm spending a lot of time thinking about how I can encourage consumption of our material. And there's a few ways we can incentivize with maybe bonuses if you complete them and you can prove that you have. Maybe we'll have like a quiz that's online where we can grade them. I don't know, but that's the next kind of frontier for us. And then one thing that I'm always thinking about is like absolute disruptions for the business. What would a guy asked me a question when I was in San Francisco? He's like, what technology would absolutely destroy your whole business? And it stuck with me, and I thought about this. And one which we're probably not going to see this we might, but not. I don't think so in our lifetime. But any technology which would interface directly with the brain would destroy any education platform. But brings its own problems, right? Because then the gap between the haves and the have-nots will be unbelievably widened, because the haves can then attain any information that they want. So anyway, it's kind of a theoretical thing, but I'm always thinking of things that will disrupt my own business so I can be at the forefront of that. And another thing is the declining purchase in DSLR rate right now. So my business is actually in decline in Western markets. In some other markets like India, it's growing, but iPhone photography is massive now. So we've got to think about that kind of stuff as well. Yeah.
So we're down to the last few questions here. What advice do you have for any of our listeners who are thinking of dropping out of college to become an entrepreneur, but they haven't quite made that step yet?
I would say it's really hard, because the advice is just that it's advice, and everyone's situation is so individual. You never can truly understand what's going through someone's head. But I think one of the best compasses to use is trust your gut. Like if you feel that you dropping out will be a good decision, then do it. Like really think it through. And one little technique which kind of ties into that morning pages thing, to think through ideas, and I use this all the time when I'm trying to decide on. So there's like an elephant in the background or something. I don't know what's going. It's not really an elephant, but it sounds like one. Anyway, is basically write down the question that you want to ask on the top of a page. So with a blank page, write down, should I drop out of college? And then write out all of your ideas about it. Just write out this thing. You don't have to share it with anyone. Just basically write until you come to a decision, and then or even just get a couple of pages out, then reread it, and it'll help you basically it's kind of like having a chat with yourself, with your subconscious. Super helpful. But yeah, at the end of the day, trust your gut. Like no one is going to be able to tell you yes or no. It is a very personal decision, and one thing to understand is that you can't make a wrong choice, especially if you're younger. I know I said before that if you're under 40, look, even if you're over 40, whatever. Just you can't make a wrong decision. You can always change choices and paths.
Right. What advice do you have for any of our listeners who have already dropped out and who are already on their entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, cool. I would say number one, definitely, if possible, work for if you haven't already, or you're not right now, work for a fast growing younger company. So you can really get an idea of what it's like at the early stages, and you have the safety of an income. It's I know a lot of people in startup like, oh, a job, like a job, it's bad, but like it's not bad at all. You can learn some amazing things. You can absolutely skip over a lot of the stuff that you would have to. A lot of the time you'd have to spend learning that stuff without working for a company, and you can do it while earning money. So I think that's a really important one. If you're absolutely adamant and you don't want to do that, which I know some people are stubborn, like me, I probably wouldn't have taken that advice. Then I would say go to digitalmarketers.com, read all of their stuff, and use their methodology, and start making some money ASAP online.
what's the best way that people can connect with you?
Yeah, I can give, if you really want to chat with me, there's I have a personal Facebook. I don't mind getting messages. I guess it's probably, it's facebook.com/BrettFox89. That's it.
Awesome.
So if they want to, cool.
Good deal, man. Well, Successful Dropouts, you've been hanging out with Brett and Kylan, learning what it takes to drop out, grind, and succeed as an entrepreneur. For everything we talked about today, head over to successfuldropout.com and type Brett into the search bar, and the show notes will pop right up. Or you can go to successfuldropout.com/episode 7. And as always, stay hungry, stay foolish. For more information about how to drop out, grind, and succeed, go to successfuldropout.com. I also love questions. If you have a question about anything we talked about today, I want to hear from you. Go to successfuldropout.com and click the Ask Me a Question link at the top of the page. Hey, next week on the show, we have the one and the only Michael Fisk. This guy is a boss of a Successful Dropout. Do not miss it.